that one. All right, we're good. Boop and boop. Okay. And then what am I actually doing today? Order, direction, descending, color equal white, ID equal white. And there we go. All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to tonight's episode. I don't know. Do I call it an episode? I don't know. Come on. You should be popping up. Also, what am I looking for? I apologize, people. Always try and make sure stuff looks right. And that's weird. Why are you not? I'm just going to restart. You do not look right. Sorry, I'm trying to make sure stuff is showing up in my... There we go. Okay. Sorry. Try and make sure my stream that's popping up on YouTube shows up properly. Twitch is fine. Twitch is usually fine. Anyway, yeah. So, yes, tonight we are looking at Betrayers of Kamigawa, which, as I have, again, we're still dealing with a block. We're going to be dealing with a block structure of some description for about another 10 or so years. So about another 7 months or so at this point. And again, for those that are not aware of what the block structure is, for most of Magic's life by this point, we had... You could take a story that happened on a given plane. In this case, we're talking Kamigawa. And you would have 3 sets that were, one right after the other, all happening in the same setting, all dealing with the same storyline. And so your storyline would take place over 3 sets. And as I mentioned last week, Betrayers of Kamigawa, the Champions of Kamigawa storyline was basically a war between the people of the plane, the mortal world, and the spirit world, the spirits that I would say inhabited the plane. It's kind of this. It's kind of, and this again, this is a bad description, but I mean, this is coming from somebody who is only somewhat accustomed to the idea of it. And basically, if there is a thing or basically anything that could be described by a noun. a location, uh, an idea, a thought, a concept, a um, you know, anything from like you could have the spirit of a tree to the spirit of the forest and like, you know, um, everything had some kind of essence to it in that context. And the kami, for whatever reason, and this is something you can look into if you so desire. Some people care about the storyline reasons, some people don't. I'm I'm one of these people that I tend to know just enough about a thing that I can follow along like the basics, but after that, it's not necessarily like I can I can understand, I can explain like surface idea thoughts and stuff like that. And anything beyond that, I'm at a loss. Like I can understand, I can put a computer together. Um I can do some basic hardware diagnosis, but anything past that, I'm like, you know what? Take it to somebody who specializes in this stuff. I can do things like, check to see if your hard drive has problems and maybe recommend some basic solutions if, if it's not too bad. But anything like, for example, recovering data that's on it, I'm like, no, take it to a specialist. Um, Kind of like how a person can know how to drive a car without understanding how the engine works and how the brakes work and this, that, and everything else. You don't need to understand all that to know how to drive a car. I'm like that with a lot of topics. I can get behind the wheel of the car and drive, but I'm not going to understand a bunch of the deep details on it. And there's a couple topics where I'm better than just, you know, the, you know, like you got the people that are just getting involved. You get the people that are like a step below that, which is probably where I sit for most things. For a couple of things, I'm like the next layer below that. And then you get the people that dig in deep. For like Dungeons and Dragons and Magic the Gathering as a game, I would say I'm about level 2. For most other things, I'd say I'm probably level 1. Like, if it's anything I've got any clue at all, I'm probably level 1. So, if you convert this into, like, 3.5 D&D, I'm the kind of person that's got, like, one rank in each skill. And there's a couple of skills I've got 2 ranks in, but for the most part, I've got, like, 1 rank in everything. And after that, yeah. Um, Anything deeper than that, forget it. I cannot hold, but I can follow along, in D&D or in Magic when people are talking about stuff that's deeper than that. I can follow along, and I understand the kind of questions I need to ask. Anything else beyond that, like if you're talking D&D lore, for example, I'll recognize characters. I might recognize like giant arcs and stuff like that. I got a friend of mine that I love to talk, um, you know, deck ideas and stuff like that with, um, who used to only live about a 45-minute drive away. He's now like 3 or 4 hours. You know, he moved during COVID. Found a place closer to his family that was a relatively affordable price. Good for him. um, yeah, talk with him regularly about tech ideas. And he'll bring up a piece of lore and I'll be like, wait, what? Okay, can you fill me in here? Because he reads a bunch, like, he'll read most of the stories that get posted on the Wizards website or because for example, if you go to actually, can I get there from here? I don't remember if I can. No. Okay. Whoops. That's the wrong one. Uh that one. What? No. That one, I hope. Uh there we go. Wow. um let's just go here. That'll be the easiest way to get there from here. Uh, there. It's got news, games, blah, 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 blah. Wonder if it's... No, that's the same thing. Where are you? Oh. No, that's quit moving. Is that where I want? It's not. Oh, wait, what? Blah, 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 blah. Okay. Not what I'm looking for, but... there we go. Magic story. Alright, here's a good example. Edge of Eternities, Episode 1. I am not expecting anybody to read this right now. If you want to... Oh. Oh no. Oh, is this one of those? Okay, mtgstory.com. So apparently, what they've done with Edge of Eternities Episode 1 is here. Oh. Oh, wow. Okay. So each of these that you click on. Oh, this is going to be a choose your own adventure story. Okay. Yep. So yeah. Um Apparently MTG story will get you through the various stories that are going on. Side stories? Wow. Okay. Yep. Anyway. Yeah. TLDR. I got a friend who will read all that stuff. And as a result, when things happen, like, for example, Trashi's verdict here, ignore everything else at the moment. He'll see Trashi's verdict, he'll see what it does, he'll see the flavor text, he'll see the graphics, and he'll have an understanding of who or what is causing what to go on and why it's happening and everything else. Like, he can take that entire card and make sense of everything that's going on. Whereas I take a look at and I see a 2 mana instant that destroys a target attacking creature power 3 or less. I look at it from the mechanics perspective, which isn't a wrong way to get to think of it. Let's be honest. It is a way, it's not the only way. And I will not ask if you know the way. But he can see everything that's going on, and because he has the background for it, he's like, oh, I get it. I am a bit better with that with the Spider Man set specifically because I used to watch a bunch of Spider Man when I was a kid. And, that was a thing I was used to. And so a lot of the stuff that I see in the Spider Man sets, I'm like, oh, of course, that just makes sense. Compare that to somebody like, Seth, probably better known as Saffron Olive, who's like, I don't get what's going on. On the other hand, so he'll be like he might very barely understand some of the surface stuff. I'm probably about level 2 at that point. Then you get someone like Vince, but also known as Pleasant Kenobi on the internet. Um, and the Warhammer set comes out, and he'll take a look at it, and he's been playing Warhammer a long time, and he gets deep into the lore stuff, and he'll see the cards, and he gets what's going on almost from like a visceral standpoint. It's like it just you know, if a card is done well with respect to that setting, he will see a card like that and it'll just click. And whether he likes the card or not will probably do more with like a feeling standpoint than you know, how does it function mechanically, sort of thing. It's more the game piece as part of like a component of a universe. Does it fit the universe they're dealing with? Some people are going to be that way with Doctor Who. Some people are going to be that way with Final Fantasy. Um, I picked up this card for I picked up this card at one of my local game stores. That came out of the Sonic the Hedgehog secret lair. Whoops. Damn it. There we go. It's called Super State. I have no clue. I have, again, very superficial understanding of Sonic, etc. I recognize, because I've been around it long enough, um, I've got a basic understanding of I've got a basic understanding of the character. For example, of who the character is and some of the other people in it. I might, if I'm lucky, be level 1 with Sonic. So I look at this card and I'm like, oh, cool. This does the thing I'm looking for. I am trying to finish polishing off my mono red, where is it? My Squee Ors Voltron deck. And I am down to needing. Whoops. I am down to needing these 6 cards. Well, I'm having trouble pinning down another Eldrazi Conscription. I have one for my Kalia deck. I could pull it out and put it in there. But I look at Super State, I see this, I'm like, okay. This kind of does what I'm looking for out of Eldrazi Conscription. What I'm looking for out of Eldrazi Conscription, and let me pull it up here. Actually, let me. Let's do this. Can I get you both reasonably on the screen at the same time? Yes. There we go. What I see out of these. Okay. Eldrazi Conscription on the left. 8 mana enchant creature. Enchant creature gets +10/+10, has trample and annihilator 2. Super State. Enchant creature has base power and toughness 9/9, has flying, first strike, trample, and haste. Whenever enchant creature deals combat damage to opponent, deals that much damage to each other opponent. Keep in mind that last ability is not combat, is not commander damage, but it is additional damage. What I see here are 2 enchantments that will enchant a creature that give it a big size boost. The creature I'm putting it on to start off with is a 1/1, I believe. So, throwing this on it and throwing Eldrazi Conscription on it is only like +2/+2 out. I'm losing +2/+2. They both give trample. Eldrazi Conscription gives Annihilator 2. Super State. So Annihilator, whenever you attack with a creature that's got Annihilator, before blockers are declared, defending player has to choose however many permanents are in that annihilator number. So annihilator to two permanents and sacrifices them. Any two that they control. If it's annihilator 6, like on Emrakul the Eon's Torn, they got to 6 permanents. So on and so forth. Super State doesn't give that, but it gives flying and first strike and very occasionally useful haste. Plus the fact that if it hits an opponent, you know, everyone, each other opponent also takes that same amount of damage. But I basically see these as two very similar cards for the purposes of this deck. I see two enchantments that give a big buff and a couple of useful abilities. I probably would have been fine if it didn't even have this last paragraph, this, you know, um, dealing damage to each other opponent bit. I probably would have been fine with that. But it's also got that. Actually, I think when I was looking at the card initially and going, I want a copy of that, it didn't even have that ability. So I picked that up for my deck. Do I understand the reference with respect to the game series? Not really. I just assume that it makes the person who, I assume that it's you get to that point in the game, you trigger that somehow, and you become really powerful for a while. You basically it's a power up. No clue about it. Okay. I understand, I know who Tails is, I know who Shadow is, I know who Sonic is. Um I can't remember the name of the the mustached villain they've gotten it. Um okay, how do I say that? I want to say Maori. Maori? Mori? How do you actually say that? You sound like you're a bot. I am saying things and you're not. Yeah, you're not responding to a word I'm saying. I see 5 lines plus a line of emotes, and you're not saying, like, I don't know. You look to me like you look to me like you're a bot. Here's the thing. I I don't have a problem with people talking in my chat. Obviously, I want people to talk, but I also don't want my chat full of, spam bots hanging around and saying random things. You're not even it's not even responding to the fact that I think it's a bot. I think that's a bot. I think that somebody set up a script, popped into a random channel and went, "Oh, cool." Thunk. And it's probably even automated. Well, I think I've said enough about my opinion, and who or whatever it is hasn't responded yet. And that's been a good, what, 3 minutes by now? Sure, if it was actually a person, they would have said something. So, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Goodbye. Anyway, um, so yeah, like I was saying, I know a bunch of stuff about like I have a bunch of interests that are I know little bits here and there. I know just enough about so many things, but I can't really go deep into any of them. And so yeah, I saw a super state. I can make some assumptions about what it is in the game, but they're very surface level assumptions. I don't even know if this is the sort of thing that you could get in like the first Sonic game or any of the Sonic games that I would have a cursory familiarity with. And so I look at it from a mechanical point of view, and realistically, a lot of decks that uh, a lot of decks that I design, I'm that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking at from a mechanical point of view. I'm not looking at it from a I'm not looking at it from like I and here's the thing. I can build based on a card's flavor. I can do that because thankfully Scryfall gives me the tools to do that. I can look at cards based on flavor text. I can look at cards based on artist. If I really want, I can go down to, the Scryfall tagger and look at things like, well, spiral. Okay. What kind of spirals are we looking at here? And I can start looking at, or Demonic Torment has got odd, uh, some really odd artwork going on. Anson Maddox did some really strange art back in the day. So let's go creepy. And let's go for stuff that feels creepy. You know, Breeding Pit, I can kind of like Blood Curdler rather. Cabal Therapist, Cosmic Horror for sure was very much that sort of card. Actually, you know what? Let's go Eldritch. 12 cards. Yeah, yeah. These are the sort of cards that would give me that kind of feel. Blasphemous Act out of 40k. Cosmic Horror we just saw. Enlightened Maniac. Maybe, maybe not. Flesh Writher. Yep. Gigastorm Titan. Huh, that's cool. You're an uncommon. Shame. Maybe shame is the wrong word. Um, I I do, however, wish that it was a common. Although, to be fair, blue already has enough big creatures to start off with. It already has Tillarian Terror and Cryptic Serpent and Gear Seeker Serpent, I think it's called. Just as like, you know, three giant beasts that you have to contend with. And if you're looking for win cons that are something beyond that, you've also got cards like Murmuring Mystic, which is like a 5 mana, I think it's a 5 mana 1/4 or something like that. That whenever you cast an instant or sorcery, you get a 1/1 bird. And so you're filling your deck full of like brainstorms and counter spells and stuff like that. You can start, just it's just a free 1/1 flyer every time you cast something like that. So Gigastorm Titan probably, as a common, probably wouldn't see enough play. It might, I don't know. Um, Hypnox, I remember Hypnox. If you cast it from your hand, you exile target opponent's hand, and then when this leaves play, they get the cards back. The scary thing is, like a lot of cards that do this sort of thing, because it has two triggered abilities. Um, One that says when it enters, and one says when it leaves. If you get the leave plate to trigger first, and then the enters, so I cast it from hand, enters ability on the stack, have it leave play somehow, its leave play trigger ability then goes on the stack. Well, now you're looking at things like, well, fine, its leave play will trigger. They return cards, but there's no cards to return. But then the come into play ability, the enters the battlefield ability, resolves, and now they exile all the cards from hand. And yeah, Hypnox is a bit of a nightmare, which makes sense because, it's got the creature type Nightmare Horror to be exact. Nemesis of Reason has got a similar kind of feel to it. Nether Horror, nothing fancy, but not something you want to deal with. Phantom Monster, yeah, scary freaking thing. Took a long time to actually get properly power crept given its rarity and its capability. Like it's only a 4 mana 3/3 flyer, but it's like 1 blue plus 3 for a 4/3/3 flyer, and was uncommon. And to get better than that, like at common, it took forever. I think it took until like Adventures in Forgotten Realms. I think it took till AFR to actually get power crept at common. This card came out in alpha, so it took a good 25 plus years, and it was an uncommon then. And it was, let me think here. Um, Holy Hand Grenade of Antioch. Um, but even at uncommon, it was realist. You would commonly find like it would be like 2 blue plus 2, and you get a 3/3 flyer with abilities. It was hard to actually get to the point where this is not good anymore. This actually stuck around for a long time for being fair and balanced, even within last, let's say, the last decade. Screaming Swarm, Bird Horror. Yeah, these are like, a flock of like seagulls or something like that, except their face has been replaced with like eyes and tentacles and Lord knows whatever else. Terramorphic Expanse. Um, Eldritch. Maybe. Not so sure I agree with that. Maybe, maybe not. I mean, it's also 40k. The setting may explain more of why. Wandering Mind? Yeah. Yeah, I could see this. So, you want to do flavor based taggings, you can do it. Um, and then, you want to see the various tags that are available. Let's see. Like, you can actually go and find all the tags, and there are 144. Wow. If you assume each page, whoops, let's go to the first page. Let's say about 10-ish there, 20-ish, 30, 40. If you assume there's 60 tags per page, which would make sense because 60 when you're looking on regular Scryfall, um, a page is 60 cards. And then 144 pages. There are thousands of tags. There's going to be over 8,000 tags. 8,000? Yep. There's going to be something like 8,500 plus tags. So yeah, all depends on what you're looking for. Um, but if you're looking for something based on the card's flavor, you can check. I mean, it's easy to search by artist or flavor text or whatever in Scryfall itself. If you go to the tagger department, um, and even if you go here, if you want to see what they all are, tagger tags come from the tagger project. And then here, if you go to scryfall.com/docs/tagger-tags. Quote, when tagging card artwork, we try to tag what we see and not what we interpret or what is implied. For example, kindness is not a tag, but things like healing or sunlight are. So, yeah, here is. Let's just grab it here. Here are all the tags. So, yeah, there's a lot. Anyway, if you're going for something that's based on the artwork, check there. Anyway, that's about 45 minutes about talking about other stuff. Let's get into the actual cards, shall we? Scour. The problem with Scour is there is really only one way to make Scour useful in Commander. And that is to find something that is turned into an enchantment. that somebody is running multiple copies of and going from there. So, for my Squee deck, what am I running multiple copies of? Well, nothing. I don't see anything. Lands, other, mountain, 20. If you can find a way to turn, for example, mountain that's in play into an enchantment somehow, for 4 mana, you exile the mountain that's in play, then you search hand, library, and graveyard for each other card that has the same name and exile them. The only mountains that get to stay in play are ones that are already in play by that point. That means, pardon me, that I would go from 37 lands to 17 lands minus whatever ones I happen to have in play. So by the time you cast Scour with an effect like, I don't know, if somebody's got Enchanted Evening out, and it might even be you, all permanents are enchantments in addition to their other types. If you do that, yeah, you've probably brought me down to about, 14 lands by then? Whoops. I have... Okay. All my other lands will still be useful. The biggest question mark would be something like Blast Landscape, but have I got anything in here? You know what? Give me my visual spoiler. Oh yeah. Yeah, you're a 1/1. Self-recurring, recursion. Again, Ulomog can be swapped out with anything. You don't matter. Fine. You're making extra damage happen. You are there just to boost a bunch. You don't matter. In case you're wondering what I'm specifically looking for, is anything that searches Journeyer's Kite. Journeyer's Kite would cut me out. That would be a card that could no longer be used. Huh. That is the only card. You remove all my lands. Now, you remove all my mountains. It's really difficult to play the deck. But you only actually shut down one card. You don't... And if I've got enough lands to get started, if I've got... I would say if I manage to have 4 lands in play. If I've got 4 lands in play, I'm probably fine. I'm not great, but I'm fine. I can cast a good chunk of what's in my deck. My mana rocks are... I've got 1/1, 2/2s, a 3, and 3 4s. For card draw, I've got Arcane Encyclopedia at 3, Cosmos Elixir might be okay. Diviner's Wand. Yep. Endless Atlas might be shut down. I think I probably have enough ways to get myself. I think if I get 3 lands, if I have 3 lands after my mountains have been pulled out, I'm probably okay. If I'm 4, I should be fine. More than 4. And here's the other thing. Look at my mana curve. What's a mana curve? Yeah. I've got a bunch of 2-drops. That looks like 15, 16. Yeah, so I've got like 18 2-drops. 16 3-drops. So that's 30. 18 and 16 is 34. 34. So about 40% of my deck that actually costs. Have I got a 0-drop? Oh, okay, yeah, I got one. Okay. 40 cards in my deck cost 3 mana or less. Okay. I feel less bad about that. So as long as I hit 3 land, I should probably be fine. I won't be happy, but I'll probably be fine. Anywho. But yeah, that would be the biggest threat to dealing with Scour. Hey, Holly. Realistically, I just started talking about the set, the set itself a few minutes ago, or I should say the actual cards in the set. Spent about 45 minutes with the initial tangents. But yeah, like I said, the biggest problem with Scour would be Enchanted Evening, and I think if you're playing with Enchanted Evening, if you're trying not to be that guy, or I should say that person, you don't put Scour in your deck, which is probably why it's so low on the list, because people realize that it just makes a bunch of feel bads. Um, because Scour and its ilk, I I disagree with Holly. My problem is cards like that, depending on which ones they are, tend to be really easy to break. And break in a way that's not fun for other people. And given the way the bracket system is these days, like if you have a way to recur Scour, you are starting to look at like mass land destruction on a regular scale. Ah, dude, no. Scour plus Enchanted Evening. I exile your forest from play. Now I go through your hand and your library and your graveyard and pull out every other forest that you've got. How many basics are you running? In my decks, I try to run somewhere around 20. If it's a monocolored deck, then you're looking at 20 of the same basic. Like Squee is going to have 20 basic mountains. You go, cool, everything's an enchantment now. Exile that and every other one that you've got. Yeah. Um, what was it? Splinter hits artifacts. So you combo that with oh, what do you call it? Mycosynth lattice, and you have the same problem. And you know, never mind people running, or there's Quash is a little less dangerous because it would really only work against decks like Dragon's Approach or Slimes Against Humanity, but it will cripple those decks. Like, especially the Slime deck, it will absolutely cripple it. Um, Wait, blue. Black, I think, was Cranial Extraction. Oh, was the black one creature? Okay. Yeah. Uh, yeah, Sowing Salts, non-basic lands. There's not really a non-basic land that you can play multiple copies of. Eradicate. Really, you're looking at somebody playing with one of those relentless creatures. So the black one and the green, or sorry, the black one and the blue one are probably the least powerful, but they will absolutely decimate anyone where they can actually be turned on natively. Um, the red one is going to be the least powerful in general, which is fine. It's been known to see occasional play in formats like Modern to deal with stuff like Tron. Not much use, but it has use. And the white and green ones are the easiest to, two card combo enable. Just, oh, cool. Also play this. Uh, Kamiya the Toadard's Shoji. Yep, that's what I said. Mike Sense plus, Splinter plus Mike Sense Lattice. Kamiya the Tattered, words. Tattered Shoji. 5 mana for a 2/5 flyer, or for a 2/5 that, whenever you can trigger it, is gains flying till end of turn. I like this better than some of the other ones. I do agree with Holly. It's a bit meh. If you're looking at it without its trigger, don't pay 5 mana for what's essentially averages out to a 3/4. For that, you should be paying probably 4 mana and get flying full time. Like just a plain 3/4 flyer for 4 mana. The first card like that I remember, and there's been others since then. But the first one I can specifically think of is Restoration Angel, which was a 3/4 flying creature with 2 additional abilities: Flash and Entered, and you flickered a non angel, which saw modern play, was decent enough in standard. Saw modern play back in the back in the before times when Jund was a, oh yeah, she's like $1 rare nowadays. Even the secret lair drop, which tends to make things, you know, really expensive. Yeah. Yeah, it's like $4. Um, but if you're just looking for a 3/4 flyer at common, Let's see here. Rarity common. Power equals 3. Toughness equal 4. O flying. Mana 4. Mana value 5. Whoops. Color equal white. Sort by mana value ascending. Okay, they're all 5 drops. But most of them are like. Actually, what if we take out the. Take out the common. Wow. Even at higher rarities, you can't get a 3/4 flyer? Oh. Yeah. I am dumb. Because what I was looking at was a 5 mana 3/4 occasionally gets flying. And now what I've got is a 3/4 flying all the time. Let's go release date. Ascending? And the first one that you got was back in Onslaught, but that was a rare. And then you got Kaladesh. Yeah, so it's, in other words, it's easy enough to get a 3/4 flyer or something equivalent to that at 5 mana, which is the same cost as this. Basically, you can get this, but better. Pretty easy nowadays, even at the same rarity. So why would you play this? I don't see a good reason for playing this over something else. If you're looking at for toughness matters stacks, there's better cards. If you're looking at for the fact that it is a cheap card, you know, this is a penny and the same rarity. This is like 5 cents. This is 6 cents. Like everything I'm seeing so far, and that has a come into playability. This is 5 cents. That's 7 cents. Like all these cards I'm clicking on so far are less expensive. 3 cents for this. When this enters, put a +1 counter on another target creature you control. This is better because it'll pump one of your guys. Same idea, but can't target a flying creature. Okay. When it enters, exile up to 1 target card from a graveyard. Even the alternate art version of this card is 9 cents. And this gives you 2 options to play it. And the second part, which is the flying creature part, has vigilance and another ability. Starling Aerial Ally is probably worse than some of these guys. And is better than the Kami. Just stop. Just don't. You want to play a card like this for its toughness? Play frickin' I think it's Kami of Ancient Stone? Is that the one I'm thinking of? No, Kami of Ancient. I can't remember where you. No, not Ancient Law. Kami of Old Stone. Yeah, Kami of Old Stone. 1 mana less, and it's a 1/7. You play that instead of You lose a point of power, you gain 2 points of toughness, and you save a mana. You want to care about its toughness? You play Kami of Ancient Stone. You don't play the Tattered Shoji. You have much better options. Word of Piety. Oh. So, you want to play this in a combo deck. You want to play this in a deck that can generate a silly amount of mana. It doesn't have to be infinite, but it can be a lot. You want to put this on a card that I play this on this card to redirect my damage from that would go here to this instead. What? So, one, you care about damage being dealt and shunting it over here. So one option is redirecting damage over to, one, redirect it to someone else's creature or someone else's face. Two, redirect it to a card like Stuffy Doll or Phyrexian Vindicator, so that you can then redirect the damage to somebody else's face. Three, you care about a creature that cares about being targeted. You don't care what the targeting does, you just care that it's being targeted. Correct. But some effects care about being targeted. What was it? There was a combo in... I can't remember if it was Modern... No, I think it was Legacy, where people were playing with Shuko. This is years ago. This is long before Nadu existed. No. You want to put that on another creature to redirect to the Phyrexian Obliterator. Yeah. I see you thinking. What you want is redirecting the damage to the Phyrexian Obliterator. But yeah, there was a deck where, no, it must have been Legacy, and I think it was one of the cephalids from Onslaught era, who, whenever became the target of a spell or ability, I think was U milled 3. Cause this is like Dredge before Dredge was actually good. Like, trying to get, like, your entire graveyard into your library. Your entire library into your graveyard. This is before we had Balustrade Spy, and before we had, whenever becomes the target of a spell or ability. Let's see if that works. No, set less than... Oh, no, I can do this. Cephalid Illusionist. I think it was that. Whenever it becomes the target of a spell or ability, mill 3 cards. I think it might have been that. Sort by color. I'm pretty sure it was blue. No, it would have been the illusionist. A, because it mills 3, aristocrat mills 2. B, it's a 2-drop, aristocrat's a 5-drop. It was the illusionist. You would continually target it with something that costs 0. Put your entire library into your graveyard and do, yeah, something like that would work. Because what you were essentially trying to do was do this effect. Oh, Emma, you're actually alive? 712. Okay. That was almost two. Um, yeah, you're basically trying to emulate Balustrade Spy before the existence of Balustrade Spy. So trying to mill yourself for a bunch, get a bunch of stuff into your graveyard. At which point, then you get out all your Narcomoebas and whatever else. So that was the plan of that deck. Basically, mill yourself for a whole bunch. And if you can generate a bunch of mana with Ward of Piety, then, an effect like that, just keep targeting the same creature over and over and over again. And you're only caring about, about targeting as something, and then you get all the targeting triggers. So there are ways to make Word of Piety. Piety. There are ways to make that work. Mending Hands, honestly, don't bother. If you're going to play Mending Hands, don't play Mending Hands. Play, honestly, I would play, Healing Salve first, because it's 1 less damage prevented, but it can also gain life, which is occasionally relevant. But I wouldn't even play Healing Salve because there's better options for that role. Anyway, if you're looking to prevent damage, I would rather have something that can. You've got 2 ways of building decks. You can either be very narrow, or you can be broad. You can either be, all my cards do this, and this is the role they have, or you can have flexible. I want cards that can do a variety of things. One of my favorite cards in the game these days. I like having cards that can answer any question I'm looking for. Beast Within is a good example. Oh, okay. Beast Within is a good example because it can blow up any permanent for 3 mana at instant speed. Sure, they get a 3/3 token, but sometimes that is a huge, from your perspective, sometimes that's a big upgrade over what you're dealing with. Instant land destruction. Cool. What kind of lands do you actually legitimately want to blow up? If I'm looking at blowing up lands um in my squee deck, Arch of Vraska, once it's turned on, is easy enough. War Room, Bonder's Enclave, all three of them being able to draw additional cards every turn. These guys, I don't care. These guys, realistically, I'm looking at blowing up Valakut. Because there are 20, I see 21. I don't think anything there. I don't think anything there. There are 21 lands in this deck that can trigger Valakut. And I have Journeyer's Kite to regularly fetch lands out. To regularly fetch the lands out. So, yeah. I am looking for those as being the... Because anything else that's got an interesting ability, it's going to be a one-shot. It's like Dwarven Mine. When it comes into play, it does its thing, and now it's just a mountain. Opal Palace. Opal Palace, eh. But realistically, not that big a deal. But Arch of Vraska, Bonder's Enclave, War Room, all being able to draw extra cards every turn off a land. There's like 5 targets in this deck that I would actually care about. And Beast Within, thunk. Makes a big difference. Yes, I would rather give my opponent a 3/3 instead of dealing with a potentially active or almost active Valakut. Blowing up your opponent's, blowing up your opponent's generals, sometimes a 3/3, and making them wait another turn or two to be able to recast it is a big deal. There's there's enchantments that you don't want to deal with your opponent having Smothering Tithe anymore. Cool, kill it. Or Rhystic Study, kill it. Artifacts, there's plenty of artifacts that you can blow up. Alright, you've drawn too many cards. Kill that coveted jewel. Nobody's dealing with that anymore. What? It won't blow up anything that's indestructible, so you can't get the One Ring, sadly. But, battles. It can hit battles, and it can hit planeswalkers easily enough. And you got a planeswalker that's about to go off? 3 mana. Here. Have a 3/3 token instead of dealing with this. I'll kill your planeswalker on your upkeep when you're about to activate it. Oh, nope. Or even more annoying, do it during the opponent's draw step. Ugh. Attacking with like a 12/12 dragon or something like that. Cool, kill it. Here, have a 3/3 instead. Beast Within just answers so many things, and giving them a 3/3 token is often a lot less annoying than whatever they already had. All that is to say, I like cards especially when I'm restricting myself to the kinds of cards that I can play. So, for example, mono red commons. I like cards that that give me a lot of flexibility because I can't always assume I'm going to have the right answer at any one time. Mending hands does not do enough. It doesn't do enough for what it is. So, you know what? ID equal white. Oh yeah, it's cool. Cool artwork. I'll grant it that. Um, type instant. Mana value equal 1. What options we got? All right. Uh, there we go. Bandage and Divine Reflection, maybe. Heal and Bandage are kind of cute because they get to cantrip. Divine Deflection is an X spell, but it is an X spell that can burn. It can take the damage that you prevent and shunt it elsewhere. Guardian Angel prevents X damage, but that ability stays up until end of turn, where if you really need to prevent more damage, you can just by spending extra mana until the end of turn. Healing Grace only prevents it to by a single source. Mending Hands, you would be looking at a single target. But any amount of damage that would, like 4 damage, it would take from even multiple sources. Healing Grace, I target this. So you can only prevent from a single source, but you gain 3 life in the process. I would prefer Healing Grace in general over Mending Hands. Because the gaining 3 life in and of itself is also, like, Healing Grace would be better in combat, for example, which you're going to see a fair amount of in Commander, let's be honest. It'll stop a creature from dying, or certainly slow down a creature from dying as badly, and gain you life, which will counteract damage, in the process. So as a combat trick, this is actually stopping up to 6 damage. I don't know. If I was looking at playing Orm's Touch, the only reason I would play Orm's Touch over Mending Hands is if I was playing a deck that cared about Kicker. Beat out to target creature. Mending Hands is better than Shieldmate's Blessing. If I'm... Yeah. Wow. If I'm looking for a 1 mana instant, Alright, what can we get at 2 mana? Acolyte's Reward is better. Candle's Glow, maybe. Oh, wow. For an extra mana, I go from preventing 4 damage to preventing 7. I also get to prevent 4 damage. Yeah, don't play Mending Hands. Play Orm's Cure instead, because even though it costs an extra mana, you can also cast it for free. You're playing white. Chances are high you have a plains in play by the time you need it. You probably have a creature. You tap a 1/1 token. And it just says tap an untapped creature you control. It can be an artifact creature. It can be a black creature. It can be, uh, a 1/1 spirit token from somebody else's, Forbidden Orchard. Doesn't matter. Tap an untapped creature. Yes, it could. If you're looking to prevent damage, Orm's Cure instead of Mending Hands. Hold at bay if you really need to prevent a chunk of damage. Acolyte's Reward, depending on how much white you're playing, you don't need a lot of white to make it better. Although if you are playing around preventing damage, you probably have enough to make Acolyte's Reward beat Hold at Bay. And if damage is prevented this way, deals that much damage to target creature or player. Yes. Oh, are you... Where are you here? White. Did I or did I not? You are mono white. What do you call it again? Acolyte's Reward. Yes, it's in here. Great. Yeah, Holly, I'm going to drop you that link again. Whoops. Oh no. My links don't work anymore. Never mind, I am dumb. I'm pressing the wrong key. Boop. Scroll all the way down to the bottom. You've got 3 extra deck lists down here at the bottom that are not part of my initial 43. You've got, Is It Commons Only Life Gain? You've got Esper, Shroom, Ultra Budget Mill. And you've got Mono White Burn. Mono White Burn is kind of funny. It's based on Darien King of Keldor. Karn, Silver Golem, is in this deck to animate Arkham's Weathervane. Sun Titan is there to regularly bring back Cold Snap. And the Arkham's Weathervane. And, Voltaic Construct is there to... So Karn basically animate the Weathervane. Voltaic Construct, because now the Weathervane is a creature, I can untap it with a Voltaic Construct. Cold Snap to turn lands to burninate people for having snow-covered lands. So that's 1. 2 is based around people having swamps in play. So, Karma and Stern Judge. Stern Judge taps for its ability. Companion of the Trials can untap it, but only if I've got Gideon Planeswalker. So I have two Gideon Planeswalkers in here. Three is throwing burn at people's faces somehow, usually by preventing damage. It's either damage prevention and then deal that much damage elsewhere, or it's just redirect the damage elsewhere. Including, some of the encores and Ward of Piety that we mentioned. Uh, 4 is using pingers of some sort. The top row is basically, +1/+1 counters, or in the case of Ication Javelineers, javelin counters, or what I used to call Ication nose pickers. And then the bottom row is proliferation, so they get more counters. More important down here to hit the, the Ication Javelineer's first javelin counter. 5. This is just stuff that will, like, equal treatment. If you take a look at equal treatment, if any sorcerer deal one or more damage to a creature or player this turn, it deals 2 damage to that creature or player instead. Oh, so my pings deal 1 damage each. Well, now they're going to do 2 each. That's a big reason to have that in there. These 3 are primarily here to make sure I can take damage for, Darien King of Keldor, because whenever I'm dealt damage, I get that many soldiers. 6 is basically just making sure that I have something in here to, your typical guilty conscience or pariah plus stuffy doll thing. These are things that when they come into play or something, burninate my opponents. 8 is, here's a creature that burninates my opponents for getting creatures. Here's ways to give my opponents creatures. This is basically, these 2 gain me life. These 3 draw cards. This can remove counters from permanents. This can remove counters from permanents. I have enough proliferation shenanigans, so that should help with the Spinal Parasite. Ramp. And then, the extra lands and stuff. But yeah. I think that's a deck you would enjoy. And, yeah. A couple of these cards, Acolyte's Reward, for example, sees play, is in that deck. Because I can take damage and send it elsewhere. Divine Reflection. I can take that damage, send it elsewhere. Anything that lets me take damage and send it. Mending Hands. It doesn't do enough. It does one very small thing, and it does it really well. But one problem that commonly comes up when it comes to playing Commander, or when it comes to Magic. You also find happening when you're dealing with computers. If you spend just a little bit more, you can get so much better. When you're looking at computers, that often finds its way when you're looking at the price of components. Like, let's say you were to spend $300 on a CPU. I don't care if you're talking Canadian, American, US, whatever. You're spending $300 on a processor. You know, for $325 you could get this instead. Or for $350 you could get this instead. Or if you're looking at a graphics card, you know, for $300 you could get this GPU. But for a little bit more, you could get this one instead. You want to buy a kit of memory. Hey, you can get a nice kit of memory for the system that you're looking at for say $80. But if you go to $90 or $95 or $100, you could get this one instead. And sometimes that extra like 10% makes a huge difference. And sometimes it's even more true when you're looking at, important stuff, like legitimately important stuff, like the power supply. One of those components that people completely ignore when they're thinking about it, like, this is what keeps your computer going. It doesn't run. Your graphics card doesn't have any way to spit out, frames to your screen if it doesn't have power. You want to make sure that power is stable. A, get your hands on a decent UPS. B, get your hands on a decent power supply. A good power supply will last you probably 10 years. Probably at least 2 builds. Or even if you have to keep with like the same computer for 10 years, it'll make sure your computer is still viable. Anyway, all that being said, Magic very easily gets into the, if you spend just a little more, like you spend one more mana, you can get such a better card. So maybe one of these days, we'll start going through some of these basic ideas and go, what is the best card to do X roll at a handful of mana costs? What is the best card for preventing damage, period, at 1 mana? Well, so far, just for preventing damage, if that's the only thing you care about, it's probably Mending Hands. If you want any more flexibility, you can prevent a little less damage, but get much better effect out of it. But if you're looking strictly at preventing damage, it's probably Mending Hands. But for 1 extra mana, at 2 mana, you're probably looking at, I can't remember what it's called, but it was the one that said hold at bay. That prevents, 7 damage. It's almost 2 copies of Mending Hands in a single card. Damage prevention cantrips. I saw at least 3 of them. None of them I were entirely enthused with, but if I'm building mono white cantrips, I might play them anyway. Which is another deck I want to try and scrounge up because, I like my weird decks. Mono blue commons take me down a cantrip city, which I do have physically built. And it is a little silly because as many cards as possible, draw cards one way or another, Comes into play, draws a card, leaves play, draw a card, dies, draw a card. You know, in fact, the most fun is probably Whirlpool Rider. Comes into play, you shuffle your hand in and then draw that many cards. My pump spells, I tried to make them drawing cards. It was not easy to find enough stuff to do that. Rousing Read, I think, was the best one. Draw two and then discard a card. My removal, pretty much all draws cards. 5 cards that trigger on me drawing extra cards. 7 cards that turn around and get me extra cards. Clear the Mind kind of fits that. Because it takes all the cards that are in my graveyard, shuffles them back in. 7 cards are basically counter spells that also say, hey, by the way, draw a card. Mana Rocks, draw a card, draw a card. Draw a card, draw a card, draw a card. 5 of my 7 Mana Rocks draw cards. 4 fetches. Comes into play, scry, cycles, reorganize the top of my deck, cycles, put an instant or sorcery back on top of my deck, cycles, surveil, and then like 22 other lands. So this literally, if this deck gets, say, 3 lands, it does not need more than 3 lands to get started. Like, take a look at this. I have 18 here and 22 here. That's 40 cards. I'm looking at 44 cards that need 3 mana or less. I think that's pretty safe to say, hey, by the way, probably only need 3 lands. And some of those are also going to be Mana Rocks. Empty Shrine Kanushi. This creature has protection from the colors of permanents you control. So, it in and of itself is basically a 1/1 world protection from white, which doesn't sound like it sounds okay. The key to that is probably the best spot removal in the game, in my opinion, is probably in white. You get Path to Exile, Swords to Plowshares, and all their variants thereof. You've also got the problem is once you get past like the top couple, it falls off a little bit. But then you've also got all the Vindicate variants, and I'm referring to Vindicate specifically here. Why am I referring to Vindicate specifically? Because it's spot removal in white-black. What? You have Vindicate. Yep. You have Vindicate. You've got Utter End. You have... Oh, good lord. I mean, you've also got Mortify. There's a... What's that 3-mana version? Let's see. Utter End. Anguished Unmaking. Thank you. And there's ID equal Orzhov. Abstruse appropriation fits that as well. Um, go away. Um, Legion of Ashes kind of fits. Yep, Rite of Oblivion fits that as well. Plus, you know, Kaya if you want to hit her up. Kaya the Inexorable does that. Um, and Ailey can start doing that kind of on a silly basis. You know, so just the and all those cards are getting blanked by Empty Shrine Kanushi having protection from white. We're just looking at things like the targeting aspect so far. If you somehow manage to get stuff of other colors as well, because it's colors of permanence you control, you don't just have to play mono white. But the thing is, playing mono white actually does quite a bit. You somehow manage to add black to the deck in some way, shape, or form. And that can be a temporary effect. That can be like, is that the right card name? Yeah, Scuttlemutt. Target creature becomes the color or colors of your choice till end of turn. You go, tap. Cool. This is now a 5-color card. It's now got protection from all 5 colored. Transcale Courier, I believe, technically has a 5-color identity. I think. Appears in is white, blue, black, red, and green in all zones. It is multicolored. So that unfortunately will not work. I had a feeling that was the case. Yeah, even the original version, Transcale Courier is all colors, even if this card isn't in play. Which means during deck construction, it counts as a 5-color card. But an effect like Scuttlemutt would work. Actually, do you as well? Yeah, you could simply go white blue, run shift, and then at the beginning of your upkeep, you take shift and you go, hey, by the way, this is all 5 colors now. And now suddenly with that in play, your Empty Shrine Kanushi's got protection from all 5 colors. Oh, shift? Yeah. Yeah, it's I mean, if you think about it, it's like it's worse than Air Elemental, realistically. And Air Elemental was a common, or sorry, was an uncommon during that point. That was probably just low enough. Like, it was just high enough to be uncommon, but at like the bottom end of uncommon. Because, like, Masters Edition 2, let's pull that up again for a sec. Masters Edition 2, will you actually tell me or no? That says 2008. Yeah, Masters Edition 2 would have been 2008, which would have been during 9th edition, I think. $2008? No, 10th edition? Yeah, because M10 would have been like another couple of years before it came out. So this would have been during like Zendikar, like first trip to Zendikar era, during which times they were considering lightning bolt to almost be viable. Anyway, so yeah, empty shrine Kanushi. You can turn on till end of turn in mono white. You can turn on permanently, like as 5 color, in white blue. So, I mean, yeah, there are ways to make it work. I I still don't think it's great, but a 1/1 that can get protection from a color, basically at that point a color of your choice, especially if you take the mono white route until end of turn, pretty much at will is pretty good. And you're playing white, so you have ways to untap Scuttlemutt as well. So, yeah, maybe. I could see an argument. I could see an argument for it being playable. But yeah, thus far, I would take Mending Hands and Tattered Shoji, and I'd put them down at the end in terms of actual playability. Faithful Squire, 2/2 Spirit or Arcane gets a key counter, and then you can flip it. And keep in mind what flip actually means when you're looking at how how rules actually work. Flipping is not turning it face up or face down or anything like that. It is doing this. This is a flip. Rotating it 180 degrees because the other side is something different. And you get a 3/4 flyer for three 3 mana that you cast, you know, 2 Spirit or Arcane spells to trigger. And you can remove a counter from it to prevent all damage to be dealt to target creature this turn. This is not a terrible card. This is better if you've got Proliferate going on. But this is not a terrible card, and I would be okay if I'm playing a deck based on Spirit or Arcane spells. I would not feel bad about putting this in my deck. The worst it is like, sure, it's a 3/4. It's a 3 mana 2/2, but it only takes me putting one counter on it, and then I can proliferate the other. And then just start proliferating counters on it with things like Karn's Bastion, which flavor wise I think is a good fit because, Karn's Bastion, you're looking at like a bastion people commonly think of like a defensive fortress or something like that. Somewhere people go to get protected. Kaiso Memory of Loyalty, preventing damage, and that's prevent all damage that would be dealt to target creature this turn. Which means if somebody goes, um, you know, you block with it, you block with a creature, you remove a key counter, and then somebody goes in the same turn, they go, Starve Extinction! Okay, my creature's still alive. How? I dropped an entire meteor on him. Prevent all damage. Doesn't say combat damage or otherwise. It just says prevent all damage. It's kind of like that meme story about Platinum Angel. I think he was supposed to be like a teenager or something like that at a Magic tournament, and it's a story. It's not a thing that actually happened. It's a story. Probably somebody saw a thing happen. Went, let's turn that up a notch. Let's turn that up a few notches and make a story out of it. Some kid at a tournament, playing with Platinum Angel. And Platinum Angel's got text that says, well, you can't lose the game. And so, the game gets to a point where it's like, yeah, but I can't lose the game. And it gets cranked up because it's not just, well, I can't lose the game. It's, I can't lose the game no matter what you guys try and do. Sorry, I have to give you a match loss. Sorry, it's not going to do anything to me. I can't lose the game. It's not how, you know, it's not how things work in a tournament. The judges can overrule what the card says. In a context like that. Then it gets to the point where it's like, the event's over, everything's well. But it's like, he gets like aggressive and abusive and everything else, and it's like, but I can't lose the game. You can do whatever you want. I can't lose the game. Try and DQ from the tournament, but I can't lose the game. They try and get the kids' parents to do something. Mom and dad crying on the phone. Just come home. Just leave the game. We want you to come home, but I can't lose the game. They call him the FBI and the SWAT team and everything else. It's like, I can't lose the game. Yeah. You guys really should look up that story. It's just taking a bit, a piece of card and turning it up to 11. But to be fair, when you're looking at how commander decks are built, sometimes that's the key to taking to making an interesting commander deck is taking a concept and turning it up to 11. And if you have enough proliferation shenanigans, my God, can you do things with Kai'Sa? You could make you could make everything in your deck invulnerable to damage. Hilariously, if you have enough counters, like you could, in theory, find a way to proliferate an infinite number of times. Well, if you do that, what I was saying with Holly earlier about that one cephalid, that if you kept targeting it, would mill yourself for 3. Again, this only cares about targeting the creature. You can pull the same shenanigans there. Suddenly end up with your entire deck in your graveyard. Your entire deck goes. And maybe you've got something crazy like, I was going to say Second Sunrise, but I'm not sure that would do what I'm thinking of. But basically, any giant mass reanimation spell. Thunk! Here's everything in play. Oh, by the way, it includes my Platinum Angel, which means I can't lose the game. I'll stop there. Yeah, Trashy's Verdict. You're playing white. Why are you playing Terashi's Verdict? There are two categories of cards I would rather play. A card like Swords of Plowshares, in general, like to do this, a card like Swords of Plowshares, where it exiles the card, or a card like Pacifism, which will stop it from attacking in the first place. And disruption. Is it planar disruption? Yeah, planar disruption is probably the best pacifism effect in the game these days. And it's also a 13-cent common. It is really freaking good. There's a couple other cards that are similar to it at that level. There's I can't remember what the other one's called, but it doesn't hit planeswalkers. Um, but it's the same ability. It's basically the same ability. Petrify. Petrify is the one I'm thinking of. Um, Gobsmacked enchant non-land permanent choose person. Oh, okay, yeah, no. Yeah, realistically, you if you're looking for a pacifism effect, Petrify and Planar Disruption are the two ones you're gonna want. Beyond that, yeah, because the other two, one's only on Arena and uses Arena only mechanics, and the other is, I mean, it costs one less mana, and in the short term, it's useful, but it's also non-land permanent, which I would rather have. You know, I would rather have Petrify or Planar Disruption because being able to cast those for 2 mana on somebody's artifact land and say, by the way, no. But I no. But yeah, if I'm looking for a pacifism effect of some sort, those are my first two go-tos. They're pacifism. They're basically a rest, but can hit more things at one less mana. Or I'm playing with an effect like Swords of Plowshares. Why would I destroy a creature when I can exile it instead? Or, if I am going to try and destroy a card, run Thraben Charm. Doesn't care if the creature's attacking. It's the same mana value. Or it can blow up an enchantment, or it can blow up graveyards. Compare that to this, which is pretty restrictive. Was it, I mean, as far as what was available for standard, it was fair. It made sense. But we're looking at commander. Um, yeah, I would take Terashi's Verdict and I would put it on the bottom row. Bottom row as in, you know, I'd put that up here with Kami of Toad Shoji and Mending Hands. Takano's Cavalry, 4 mana for a 1/1 with Bushido 1, so it's kind of a 2/2. Tap, 1 damage to target attacking or blocking spirit. No. Honestly, when you can get a 2/2, like a straight up 2/2, at that cost, that can do probably 2 damage to attacking or blocking creature. No. Even the fact that it's a samurai or an archer wouldn't save it. It's not good enough. Kitsune Palliator. 3 mana for 0/2. Prevent one damage should be dealt to each creature and player this turn. Now this is different. This is different. Usually when I start looking at a card like this, it's like, okay, prevent one damage to target creature or player. As I'm looking at the Oracle text. Hey, eso! Normally when I see this, it says prevent one damage should be dealt to any target this turn. But it says creature and player. Why does it say creature and player? Which is what the card text says. Each creature and each player. Oh! Suddenly that makes it a lot different than the various Samite healer effects that we've had in the past. For those that don't know what I'm talking about, let me just pull up Samite healer real quick. Now let's go to the original art. No reason to change it, just what I'm familiar with. 2 mana for 1/1, which 0/2, 1/1, more or less the same thing. When you're costing cards, they're basically the same thing. Tap, prevent the next one damage to be dealt to any target this turn. So 1/1, 0/2, okay. So you expect a 0/2 that prevents 1 damage to any target to also be 2 mana. But this is 3 mana. But it's prevent the next 1 damage to be dealt to each creature and each player this turn. What? Suddenly this is different enough. That's actually enough to make it worth the extra mana that you're paying over an effect like Samite Healer. Which also means that it counts more as a 0/3 and less of a 0/2, because at the worst, it's going to prevent damage to itself. So if you're looking for damage prevention effects, and you need to be able to prevent to a bunch of stuff at once, maybe you're playing a token strategy. An effect like Mending Hands, as we were talking about earlier, it only affects one target. The Kitsune Palliator, you're playing a token strategy. 1 damage to everything? I'll prevent 1 damage to everything. Well, crap. That is kind of huge. This is probably worth, just on the bare face of it, something like prevent 4 damage. Assuming you were looking at like a standard legal card. In a format like Commander, depending on the kind of deck you're playing, this can be preventing like 10 plus damage easily. And that's just your side of the table. Hilariously, having this in play can completely screw over combat. Because people be like, block, 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 block. And if there's no effect like Questing Beast in play, cool. Everything takes 1 less damage. Everybody lives. What? Oh, is there any death touch? Oh, it's only dealing 1? Okay. Yeah, everybody lives. Yeah. Yeah. And especially if you've got a way to untap this somehow. Dude, you were just going to make it. You play blue-white with something like Freed from the Real or a similar effect, and things just go haywire. You are sitting there determining how Many years ago. Let's see here. I would say probably around 8 years ago. I was in a D&D campaign um, here at the house. And the DM had decided to run a 3.5 campaign, which would go into Epic, and the characters were gestalted. And a couple quick notes. Um, if you're not familiar with Dungeons and Dragons in general, it is a tabletop role. It is the tabletop role playing game that started the entire genre. The base concept of a role playing game is the person running the game describes the situation. You say how your character will respond in that situation. Your character sheet tells you what the character in question is good at, and potentially some things they are less good at, or potentially even bad at. And you use those to make the relevant, judgment calls for your character. 3.5 has got a bunch of the way I like to see it, a bunch of dials and knobs that you can tweak and massage to get your character to be how you want it to be. If you really like, you know, doing weird things with your characters in terms of like I want a character that's like this but is actually secretly surprisingly good at that. 3.5 might be the version for you. Also, along the same line, first edition of Pathfinder. I can't speak on second edition because I have no familiarity with it, but first edition I know is very much like 3.5, with again some additional knobs that you can tweak. The basic rules for the game support a character getting to 20th level, at which point fighting, giant, you know, giant ancient dragons and, other potentially world ending creatures is something that you need something of that kind of level to give the characters an actual challenge. It doesn't have to be a combat challenge, but something at that kind of epic scale. When people are referring to 3.5 and they're talking about an epic campaign, they're talking about something that goes beyond 20th level. Also, in Dungeons and Dragons, ever since 3rd edition, the basic concept of advancing a character is, well, whenever you go up a level, whenever your character goes up a level, because a lot of games have some kind of level structure, and every time you go up a level, you get more hit points, you unlock new abilities, this, that, whatever else. Dungeons and Dragons 3. 3rd edition. Well, Dungeons and Dragons has been doing that since day one. 3rd edition added, like multi-classing already existed, but there were restrictions to it. 3rd edition allowed anybody to multi-class, and the basic idea was every time you go up a level, you can either put into a class you already have, or you can put into a new class. So in theory, you could end up with a 20th level character who's first level in 20 different classes. Or you could have somebody that's like 19th level in one class and first level in another class. Or, any variation thereof. Generally speaking, better to keep them within a level or two of each other.